Hit record here. All right. Well, as I said, I'll give the team a little bit of background here, so I won't necessarily do that as part of the recording. But I'm going to start, Sydney, with your story a little bit because you and I have gone way back before your senior year in terms of just I coached you in middle school, Salvation Army League and Steve Cooper's League in the spring, and you were part of a group that had played together and played for me for I think my first 6 years when I was at Springville. And so, over the course of that time, I guess maybe if you could just talk a little bit about your basketball experience and kind of what you were hoping for, as your senior year approached in 2015, 2016.
Well, as for my basketball experience, I always loved basketball. It was my favorite sport. And I knew that I was not the best at it. I'm not a super athletic person, but I enjoyed it so much and I enjoyed the team aspect the most about it. And as I was entering my senior year, I was just happy to be able to get to play on the varsity team. I was happy to be taking a bigger role, being able to show up as a role model and as, a point of leadership for the younger girls on the team. And I mean, you remember from my class, like my biggest goal in terms of athletics was like, I wanted to be a state champion. It's all I wanted. I did not care how we did it. Other than, I wanted us to still be the kind of team that we were, like the kind of people that just enjoyed each other's company. Like we like to come out, we like to play hard, and that was the most important to me, that we were still able to do that. Like I kind of felt like being a state champion was a far-fetched dream for a while. But coming off of my junior year where we had been runner-ups, I was just really looking forward to seeing what the team could do.
Yeah, and if I remember right, kind of your progression through high school, you had still played some JV your junior year, and from that junior year to senior year, as you mentioned, we were runner up, didn't graduate much. I mean, Madison and Rachel were both starters that year and took a lot of shots and were a big part of that team. But it looked like coming into the season that there were going to be some opportunities for you to break into the rotation a little bit there as well. I don't know if you could speak to that for a minute, and then we'll talk about Nico.
Yeah, I was pumped. I thought I was going to get to play. Like, don't get me wrong. I was just happy in general to play. Like, I love being on JV because I was the boss on JV. Like, I was in charge because I was the junior on JV. But, like, everyone's goal, like, if you're going to do something, you're going to want to be the best. And I mean, I live that. I woke up this morning ready to be the best, heading for my PhD because I want to be the best. And I felt that way, in athletics too. Like I wanted to play varsity just like everybody else at my level, essentially, other than a few other girls were playing varsity. And it wasn't really about, recognition, but more of just like, I want to be a part of that, like the team that takes it all the way. So I was very excited for that.
And I think everybody can, relate to that in some way or another, because you don't go out for a sport saying, it doesn't matter if I play or if we're good or not. Like everybody wants, as you described, desires to be the best. And obviously is out for a sport because the sport's fun to play. And so, especially with that expectation for your senior year, that kind of sets us up a little bit for introducing Nico here as a character in the story, because Nico that same year, 2015, moved to Springville, has some relatives already living in town, some Springville legends with Riley Menster and a couple others there. So we had met Nico before, but had never played in our system, didn't come to our camps or anything like that when she was younger. And so coming in as a freshman, Nico, maybe you can just describe a little bit of what that was like, that adjustment for you, that because I remember that first summer for a couple of those first open gyms, it was a little bit like your head was spinning around in circles as things were going on, as you were trying to pick up on what exactly we were doing. But tell us a little bit about that adjustment for you.
So I feel like mine was kind of the opposite of Sydney. Like Sydney, like I get you kind of like wanted to be the best. You were the junior. And I was coming in and I was like, I'm a little freshman. I kind of just want to stand in the background, like JV, like, and then I started practicing more with the varsity, and I feel like that kind of scared me a little bit. And I know like Sanderson and I like had some talks about that, and you're like, just keep doing what you're doing, just keep playing, it'll be fine. But the first few practices for sure were super intimidated, especially coming in as a freshman and learning a whole new offense that I thought was so confusing at the time, and I thought I would never get it. God, it was terrible, but it's not that bad now. Um, but no, it was an experience. I don't even know how to describe it. It took a lot of getting used to, but with the support of my teammates, that helped a lot. So
And that's kind of my next question, Nico, because again, it's unique coming in, not having been at school in eighth grade, and having classmates that you knew that were going through the system at the same time. What was that reception like, in terms of the players that were already there? You mentioned practicing a little bit with varsity. What did they do that made you feel supported and welcomed?
yeah, I feel like a big thing was like, obviously I played basketball at the school I was at before. And I feel like when you grow up on a basketball team, you already have built that team chemistry. You kind of know, like, for Michaela, for example, like Michaela is going to set a screen and roll. We're going to toss the ball. She's going to get a layup. So that took some getting used to. And it took a few of me throwing the ball out of bounds several times because I thought that they were going to do something else that my teammates would have done in the past. So that definitely took some adjusting. But like every time after I'd make a mistake, and Cindy, you were a big one, you'd always come up to me like, "You're all right, like you got this." Or when I was in a drill or I was standing on the sidelines for a drill, people would be like, I remember Chrissy Hoagland, she'd be like, "All right, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this. You got this." And I was like, okay, that made me feel a little bit better. So
Now, Sydney, for you, being a senior on that team and being one of the leaders that have been around for a long time, you have somebody new like Nico that came in, gets pulled up to the varsity level. Was there anything in particular you remember just in terms of, you trying to make her feel welcomed, or just when Nico, maybe for the first time, you thought, okay, like she might be able to help us out here?
Direction and reinforcement all the time. Like, this is what we're doing, and you're doing amazing, because you're only as strong as your weakest link. I'm not saying you were ever a weak link, Nicole, because you were not. You were phenomenal.
I was.
I love that for you. But yeah, like my mindset the whole time was be a good role model, be the person that you wanted to have when you were a freshman, because I certainly had no chance of playing varsity when I was a freshman, but nevertheless, we had girls who were juniors and seniors when I was a freshman who were just, they were not it. They were not necessarily very nice, and they were not necessarily very helpful. And I just never, ever wanted to be like that, either as a person or as a leader. And it's important, to solidify, how you're going to be a leader. And I just knew, like, when Nico was coming in, like, I never expected that she would be so amazing that she would, like, become an all-star on the team freshman year. But like that didn't really matter to me, because it's more about inclusivity and building relationships and making sure your team is the best that it can be. So, I mean, my perception of Nico coming and joining varsity was like, fuck yeah, we got another person and they're amazing. Like, I don't know. But like, it's never been for me. I can understand why it would be hard for other people, like, especially if you had really big hopes going. Like, I had hopes that I wanted to play varsity, but most of the time I'm just happy to be there. I'm pretty easily pleased. So
Well, as we went through that year, there's a couple things that stick out to me when I tell this story. The first one was, so the way that we kind of brought Nico along, and I think this has been our template for a number of years, is we saw some potential that, athletically, there was a lot that she had to offer. But as Nico mentioned, like, She had no experience in her offense whatsoever. I don't know that she'd ever played zone defense before in her life. That there was a lot that was different and a lot that she had to adjust to. And so we started her off, and we kind of did this with Maddie Wagaman the year before, where she played 4 quarters of JV and was probably number, I don't know, 8 or 9 in the rotation at the varsity level, which meant that she might get a few minutes, here and there in a game. But most likely in games against good teams, she probably wasn't going to get varsity minutes, at least early in the year. And I remember playing Mac Valley at our place. They're ranked in the top 10 at the time. And we got in all kinds of foul trouble in the first half, and Nico got thrown in there for the first time, playing 4 minutes or 6 minutes, something like that in the second quarter, because everybody else had foul trouble. And after the game, she didn't do anything spectacular. It wasn't like she came in and scored 10 points and, or anything like that. But I remember as a coaching staff standing outside the locker room after the game thinking, all right, Nico, like, she might be able to help us here. And we've got to make a commitment to try to keep her feet wet, because we felt like, and I don't know if you remember this, Nico, or some of those early moments playing varsity in games, we felt like you were a little nervous the first couple of times that you went out there. And so we made a commitment. We were going to get you one turn at the varsity game, almost no matter what, at least one turn, just to start building your confidence, in those moments. I don't remember if you remember, again, kind of what that was like the first few times that we threw you in there.
Very nerve-wracking. I remember shaking and Riley coming up to me saying, just relax, bud, you're fine. So I was very nervous.
And I think one of the things, and I don't know if you relate to this, but as a freshman, especially with a lot of upperclassmen playing, there can be that pressure of, I don't want to be the reason. I don't want to be the one that screws it up for everybody else. I don't know if you can relate with that at all.
Yeah, I remember, God, I don't remember what game it was, but people were in foul trouble and it was a tight game. And there was, I don't even remember what team it was, but they would always sag off me because they didn't think I would shoot. And they were right. I was too scared to shoot. I'd always try and pass it off. But there came a point where they weren't guarding me so much that there was like no other place that I could throw the ball. So I was like, okay, I'll shoot it, I guess. Missed it probably the first time, kept trying, made it. I was like, okay, this isn't so bad. Started getting used to it, but it definitely takes getting used to, and the support from your teammates is what really matters. It's what makes you feel comfortable out there. So that helped a lot.
Now, as we fast forwarded through the season, there's a couple other significant games. One, we played Central City after a Christmas break. That's the game where Alyssa Yeager got her tooth knocked out in the press break in the first half. I don't know if you remember that, but she was running to catch a ball and caught an elbow here, and her tooth went sideways into her lip. And so mom took her to get her face fixed, and that opened up an opportunity for kind of Sydney and for Nico, both who essentially at that point were kind of sharing that spot in the rotation, kind of that number 7 spot. And so Sydney came in first, Nico came in after that, and they kind of split those minutes there for the rest of that half. And I remember, again, as a coaching staff, like, Nico played really well in the first half, particularly defensively, just being quick at the top of the zone. We were pressing, and, you were running up and down the floor with them. And so, we went to the locker room, and I'm standing outside with Hushak and Ruba, and I grabbed Wags before she went in, who was one of our senior captains that year, Megan Wagaman. And I said, Wags, I think we need to start Nico in the second half. And I said, how do you think that's going to go over? Because that's a significant thing, because Sydney had always taken the first turn before Nico. And if we came out in the second half and Nico started in Alyssa's place and not Sydney, it was going to be evident to everybody that the change of the guard had occurred. And so, you guys know me well enough that our chemistry was as important as anything else. And so, that's why I had asked Meg for her perspective on that. And she just said, Coach, just do what's best for the team. We'll be fine. Sid will be fine, And so that, for me, was a little bit freeing, because I felt like we were all on board with whatever makes us our best. That's what we want to do. And so I remember coming out of that, and Sid would be interested to hear your take on this if you remember this game, but I grabbed you on the way back to the bench and I said, hey, I think we're going to start Nico, in the second half here. And you ran out and told Nico that she was going to start before I could even get to her. And that was a reaction that I did not expect. And so I don't know if you can kind of describe a little bit of just sort of what that was like for you.
What the fuck? Did you see that kid? Okay, whatever. I've never seen a child in this building before. Um, yeah, no, I distinctly remember that. I remember it every time I think about the season because you guys pulled me in and you seemed so nervous. And you and Hushak and Ruba were looking at me. I thought I was in trouble because, I was in trouble all the time because I'm just kind of a D-bag. And like all the time in high school, I was in trouble. But anyways, the point is you guys were scared. It kind of made me look scared, me feel scared. But then when you guys were like, would it be okay with you if Nico started? And I don't know if it didn't bother me. Like, I was like, yeah, whatever. Why not? At that point, I didn't realize that it had greater implications, for sure. But it ended up working out in a way that I love. Like, I was happy with my role for the rest of the season, and I loved being on a team that just freaking obliterated everybody. It felt so good. And I was so happy for Nico because I knew like basketball was one of her passions, just like it was one of my passions. And there's that kid again. And if you can share that passion with somebody, like that's the goal. And so I was very excited for Nico. Like I was beyond excited. I was like, girl, you gonna start. It's gonna be so great. But yeah, that was my perspective. Like I definitely didn't realize at the time what was happening. But I think a big part of being in a leadership role on a team is being able to roll with those kinds of things. Like I knew that you knew what was best. Like I am a player, not a coach. I've never been a coach. And therefore, I was ready to roll with those punches.
Nico, how about for you? I don't know what you remember about that game or just kind of that time period in January where, your minutes started going up after that and they were at the expense of Sydney's minutes, so as before you guys might have split 12 minutes evenly. You started getting 8-4 and then eventually 10-2, and as we tell in the story, by the time we get to the state tournament, Sydney wasn't in the rotation and, you were playing those minutes off the bench. But what was that transition like for you?
I feel like having Sydney as a teammate made it so much easier. I think it could have gone one of two ways. One, she could have been the girl that's like, she's taking my spot, like starting like team drama that doesn't need to be started. I feel like our team was really good about that, just like having that bond and that connection. So it was super exciting that Sydney came up to me. It was like, hey, you're starting, like, don't forget this. You're going to do great. Like, if you have any questions, like, let me know, like, I'm here to help you. If it would have went the other way, I feel like it would have just kind of like, what's the word? Kind of just like took a fall for our team, like a step back, just because if we didn't have that support in our team, it would have gone like such a different way. So I think that's a very big part of just being part of a team is just supporting each other. Because if Sydney would have reacted in any other way, it just would have put me in a difficult position and it just kind of would have been awkward for everyone. So that really helped.
And I can attest that it doesn't always work out that way when, a senior or an upperclassman has somebody else playing in front of them, and that's not easy for them. That's oftentimes not easy for their parents. Like it can create all kinds of turmoil on a team, which, for us, where we were at that point in the year, and maybe Sydney, this is why we were had a little trepidation when we were talking to you, because it was probably the second or third week of January. There's maybe 3 weeks left in the regular season. And so, if we made a move and it wasn't accepted, like that could have been significant, getting ready to go into postseason with the idea that we've got a chance to win a state championship. Of course, the end of the story, the Hollywood ending, so to speak, as we get into the state tournament, as I mentioned before, Nico's basically absorbed all of those minutes as the first guard off the bench by the time we're at the state tournament. Although Sydney had a big role in the game, the regional final, where Megan threw the ball off the ceiling, if you remember, at the end of the game down against Montezuma, which our team at Mount Vernon has seen those moments and met Megan, and they've had a talk about that. But anyway, about the grenade. But That was another game where we got in some foul trouble. Riley got in foul trouble. Nico got in some foul trouble. And I think Sydney and Maddie finished the second quarter, of that game. And so, that as a coach was one of the things that I think I appreciated most about the way you handled that, Sydney, was, I knew that an injury, a ankle, foul trouble, another person gets an elbow and knocks a tooth out. Like you're one thing away, one event away from coming in and having to play minutes again in big moments. And that happened, right? That happened for you in the regional final. And again, if you would have just shut it down and thrown yourself a pity party and stopped trying in practice and stopped paying attention to the scout, like we might not have made it to the state tournament, let alone have a chance to play for a state championship. I don't know if you remember that regional final. Again, any moments stick out to you from that night?
I distinctly remember Meg's throwing that ball up in the air, and it was so
Early.
It was so funny.
Super early.
Yes.
Everyone
That was
watching
the best
on the
part.
buzzer didn't even go off yet.
I honestly don't remember much from that. Like, I was always just happy to go in. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's my happy-go-lucky personality. But I do remember I was always nervous in those times because I did realize like I was going in because the person that should be playing like can't anymore. And I always loved those moments. I was happy that I was able to help the team, even if it meant, I wasn't playing the whole time because I was able to play my role. And I think when I was sent in, I did it. I did what I was supposed to do. And I think, that's what you have to do when you're on a team. Just do what you're supposed to do.
Well, and I think that message speaks to, when you're talking about, as you going all the way back to the beginning, Sid, of how you kind of framed your season. If you want to win a state championship, it's not done with 5 players. You have to have depth on your bench. You have to have a scout team that's committed to getting you ready. You have to have players that maybe aren't in the rotation, but are ready to step in if they're called upon, as you were. And if you don't have any, one of those ingredients is missing, it becomes much more difficult, to be able to be successful at that level. And I always thought that was just one of the best things about those years for us, is that we had people that were bought in, whether they were starters or they were coming off the bench or they were scout team, that all contributed in some way, whether they made Jeff Linder's articles or not. We knew that, gosh, we had to have everybody, as you said, doing their job, doing their role to have a chance, to lift that trophy up at the end. And I guess the ending, that kind of brings us to the last couple of state tournament games there. Nico, the story, of course, in the regional semifinal, we're playing Newell Fonda, the team that had beat us in the state championship the year before. And I think in that game, we shot 37 free throws in that game, which sounds great. Like, oh, we went to the line a bunch, which is true. But we also got in a ton of foul trouble in that game. And you ended up playing 24 minutes, which was the most varsity time you'd played all season long in one single game. And just had a great game, a solid game. I think 6 points, 4 rebounds, a couple assists. And again, just came in and played far more than what you had all season long in, at that point, the biggest game of the year, and playing for a chance to move on to a state title. What was that experience like?
Oh God, where do I even start? It was such a big difference coming in when people were in foul trouble and taking over some of those minutes. I felt a lot more comfortable than I normally would have, just because we had like such a good scout team. And I remember like some of our girls, they would like literally sometimes go to bed watching film of the other team and like practice moves that they could do on us to try and trick us so that we would be ready and be expecting what the other team was going to do. But I mean, it was awesome. I don't know how else to describe it. It was awesome. And having the support of everyone on our team was just great. So.
And Sydney, how about for you? Again, you mentioned being one of Nico's biggest fans on the team. By that time, I think you had played. I think you came into that game at the end of the third quarter for like 1.3 seconds to give somebody an extra chance to get a drink of water during a free throw, and then we subbed you out to start the fourth quarter. Which again, some players would see that as an insult. That you wouldn't play me for more than that. But what was that experience like for you?
just happy to be there. I mean, when it comes down to it, like if you want to get deep here, you can either be a winner or you can be selfish. Like if you wanted to be selfish, that's fine, but selfish people are not winners. They always lose in the end. And I was just overjoyed to go on the court. Yeah, I can see how it can be an insult to people who, think basketball is their entire life or sports are their entire life or, their success is based on their own personal performance, what they get to show the crowd, what they get to accomplish for the team. But the reality is that most of that stuff happens in the background. Like it's very important to have athletic people. It's important to have people who understand the plays and are ready to go out and take the pressure of playing an entire basketball game. But it takes the people behind the scenes just as much effort, if not more, in order to help those people win. And I don't know. I like to be on the court. I don't care what I'm doing.
Well, we'll get you out of here on this. I want to get both of you to answer this question. Now that you're looking back and, you guys having jobs and degrees makes me feel really old doing this interview here. But it's been 6 years now since that season, and as you look back and you think about the memories and some of the things we talked about here, what was the most challenging part of that year for you, and what was the most rewarding? And Sydney, maybe we'll start with you. Most challenging part of that year, and what was most rewarding for you?
I think it was most challenging at first when I realized I was not going to get the minutes I thought I was. Like I can tell you over and over again, like I'm just happy to be here, but I did want to play. Like I wanted to be a part of the team. I wanted to be good enough. So that's really what it came down to. Not necessarily that like I needed to go out and score a jillion points. It's like I just wanted to be good enough to get to play on the court. And what it came down to was deciding that time on the court was not more important than the relationships I had on the team. And it was not more important than our success, because everybody gains from a success. It's not just the people who are on the court. And it can be tough when you're standing in the back hallway listening to Michaela Nichole butcher an interview with TV9 News. But, it's not about that. It's about the ending. And that's why the ending was the most rewarding for me. Because I got to pick up the trophy and go out, and it really felt like everything that I had sacrificed and everything that I had put aside was really worth it, and everyone got to benefit from it, and it was really amazing.
How about for you, Nico?
I feel like the hardest part for me at first, and I feel like we had several talks about this, was just being in the moment. I felt like ever since I started playing more and more, like I was less enjoying the game of basketball and more concerned about like, I have to do this, I can't mess this up. Like I just want to make sure I'm doing everything right. And I feel like after having like all those talks with you, like just do what you do, like do your thing, just be in the moment, like actually enjoy it. You don't want to look back and think, well, I'm already graduated. I don't want to look back and think, man, I really wish I could have enjoyed that more. I wish I would have done this. Because all throughout my high school experience, you were always telling me, like, what do you want to remember? Like, make this, give it your all, do your best, because we're just out here to have fun. And I feel like that's what really helped me have a lot of fun with the game. And then I'd have to agree with Sydney on the most rewarding part was just the ending of it all. Like, I don't know how you could ask for a better ending. And I feel like we got that ending just from working hard with each other and as a team. So.
All right. It's good stuff. Anything else you want on the historical record here?
Y'all, when I was in high school, I got in trouble for a lot of stuff, and I realized this recently, and I think everything I did was very reasonable. Okay. I just want to put on record that for what I am now, I could have been so much more of a jerk. And I held that back because I'm a good person. But anyways, that's all I shouldn't. I'm better now. I won't at anybody. I'll just keep it to myself.
Well, we appreciate you, Sydney. How about that?
Appreciate you guys.